There we go.
Okay, perfect. So, hello and welcome to another Doc Art interview. Today we have the pleasure to talk with Catherine from Sylvaine, who will be releasing a new album called Nova in March. First of all, I can say it's a very, very nice album, very atmospheric, very emotional, and also very like fits to the previous releases. So I want to start with the first questions right now. How do you write music? Like, are you basically just playing around with your guitar unplugged a bit, or do you have like really like concept written on paper based for the album?
That's a good question. Usually, well, what I've learned after 4 albums is that there's basically no rules for how an album is created. It always kind of changes a little bit from time to time, the process and all the different parts, how they come about. But usually the way that it works for me is that I have my, like you said, my unplugged electric guitar, and I kind of just sit and jam with myself, and trying to channel the things that I have to say into melodies, and I try to stay spontaneous and let everything come out. So that means that sometimes there will be ideas that I really like that I will develop into full songs. Sometimes there will be ideas that I still develop into full songs, but it doesn't really end up on the record, or things that are not that great. So trying to just keep it spontaneous, me and my unplugged electric guitar, that's how I usually start creating. Sometimes you have melodies that just kind of fall into your mind. I remember waking up from a dream where I had been playing a song in my dream, which wasn't the song that was written yet, and writing that down. So it has a little bit of a different process every time. Certain pieces I also write out in score, like in sheet music, depending on what kind of style it is. So there's no real rhyme or rhythm to it, but usually it starts with me and my unplugged electric guitar.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. And I think like the most interesting question here is if you go from like let's say like large scale concept for the album and break it down to little pieces, like to out of the concept comes like a few songs that build up this concept, which is maybe very good because you have a concept from the beginning on, and nobody can say after all like the album is just like a few songs put together, you know. But maybe a bit difficult because there it might be a bit hard to that like every song fits to the whole concept. Or if you go like from these small pieces from the certain songs to like build up one concept like in the making basically.
Well, so Sylvain for me is more than making like concept albums. It's what I like to call an audio diary. So there's a lot of artists that do this kind of thing where there's just kind of every record becomes a statement of who you were, or like a witness kind of who you were at the time when you were creating the record and what you were going through in your life. And that's exactly what Sylvain is for me. Basically, it's a way for me to release in a cathartic way all the emotions that are building up in certain times of my life into these songs. And they kind of just take on the shape that they're meant to take on. It's not something that I consciously go, I want to write an album about this specific thing. I want to do a concept album around this topic. So it's something that happens quite naturally. And usually what I'm going through at the moment is what defines the overall theme of the record. As well as, of course, in Sylvain, there's always been this very like spiritual severance pillar that's in the middle of the project, which was what actually led me to create this project in the beginning. So not really something that I consciously choose. It's more something that comes out naturally, and the concept is kind of defined by the emotions and the experiences I'm going through in the years that I'm creating each record.
Hmm. I really like the name you put on this, like an audio diary.
Yeah.
It's a very nice way to describe it, actually. Never heard this term before, but it's a very nice one, actually. Um, and when it comes to the sound of every album, like how do you try to find the sound for each album, and like especially now when we're talking about Nova and like to really find a sound you're satisfied with and you feel like this really catches the emotion of the album, because like there's a little like there's a nice example that a good friend of mine used like you have like a very, like in your case, like very atmospheric music, very emotional music. And for example, you could use like the snare or the drum sound of Slayer, but that would not, fit that much into it,
True.
But how do you find the sound for you?
Basically, I think it's again something that happens quite spontaneous. I always have an idea of what I'm trying to achieve, and like for example, if you look at my back catalog, my first records was very much me trying to find out how I'm going to channel that and express that into my music. Whereas, for example, the second record was much more focused because I kind of found the way to achieve the sound. So it's the same as with the songs. I feel like the song will dictate what sound is needed because every emotion that goes into each song is what decides what kind of sound we need to create the right world around the emotions. So it's something that happens very naturally as well. When I go in the studio, I already have my demos are all done. Usually they have all the layers and everything there. So both me and the engineer and the session musicians that I'm working with have an idea of what we want to create in the studio. And then of course you have the idea. I always knew that I wanted to have this kind of balance between the dark, the heavy, the like harsh elements with the very lush, ethereal, melodic, maybe catchy pop kind of elements. So to achieve that, I knew that there will be a lot of effects involved, but I still want those songs to work without effects, like if you just play it on an acoustic guitar. And otherwise, it's just a matter of taste. I think everything that you've listened to in your life, everything you've been influenced by, comes out in your sound somewhat. So it's just a matter of personal opinion, like what you think fits the best with the emotions of the songs.
Mm. I see. And when it comes to recording, I mean, you record the vocals and guitars and bass, but not the drums. Like, do you write the drums on your own and you say like, hey, let's play it in this way? Or is it more like you say, okay, please, Mr. Session Drummer, like this is like the song, and please come up with something, or is it, as I guess, probably something in between that you exchange yourself to that?
Absolutely, yeah, something in between. Yeah, because I do also play drums, but I know my limits. I knew that I wouldn't be enough to do what I wanted to for this project. So I have been lucky enough to work with several, like three at this point, very, very good, nice, and cool session drummers. So I usually write out and I program out some MIDI drums for my songs when I'm working on them, because I usually have a vision of what kind of rhythm I want, what kind of like how can I say that, how to, which parts to emphasize in the rhythm, which beats to emphasize and stuff like that. And then I will give that to the session drummer and I will let them try to interpret that. Sometimes I go, I want this exact pattern, and you add the fills you want. Or I will go, this is the feel I want, and you can try to find something in the same kind of style, but with your touch on it. So in the past, before the pandemic, when I was working with my dad, Steven, and when I was working with Nej from Alcest, basically we would meet, we would work together. We would go into like a rehearsal room and we would work on the songs together. I would play guitar or even just like listen to them, and then we would talk about it, and then we would change things and we'd do stuff like that. But for Nova, since we had the pandemic and I was in Norway and my live drummer Dorian was in France, basically we have to do all this online. So I would like program stuff, I would send it to him, he would send me his comments back, he would send me trials back, we would discuss and then go back and forth like that. So it was definitely a team effort. There was one song on the new record that I said to Dorian, do whatever you want, and that was the bonus track, Dissolution. I wanted him to like, that was the very first song we did together, it was the first song that we started working on for the record. And this one I just said, do whatever you want, and it turned out great. For the other ones, it was more of a collaboration, and some songs he brought more ideas. For the longer songs, he brought more ideas, and for some of the shorter songs, I had very specific things in mind that I wanted to play through him, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense because we always have to keep in mind that like drums from a guitarist's point of view is like different than like from the drummer's perspective.
For
So
sure.
you need like a lot of communication here to really get the best result.
Absolutely.
I think that's
Absolutely.
true. Yeah. Um, so to introduce a bit like the topic of the lyrics, what comes usually first for you? Like I mean, like you already said that you like usually like unplugged playing with your guitar, but what comes first for you? Like the lyrics or the music?
So once again, it's not really something that's the same every time, but it seems to be for me that the music comes first. And that's simply because I like to use music as a way to try to express and explore emotions that are, or things that are hard to talk about with words. So it's a way to deal with them and release them, sort of, by making music about these things. So I usually make the music first and then lyrics are happening maybe at the same time that I'm working on the different layers in the music, sometimes after. Sometimes I'll have like just a phrase or a word even that I want to write around because it aligns with the concept or the emotions that I want to communicate to the listeners when I'm creating a song. Most of the time though, it's the music that comes first and the lyrics come after because, like I said, trying to use music as a way to express things that are hard to put into words, but then you have to put them into words anyways when you write lyrics, so it's always an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, we will actually come back to this point later on. Um, but now talking about the lyrics, like, did you prepare like a lyrical concept for Nova? Because when I was reading the lyrics, I saw like some parallels between the lyrics. Because it seems like you often have like a lyrical eye that is somehow like caught in a state between like dreaming and like abstract like feelings and fears, but at the same time being like very realistic and like thinking very sober at some points almost. Like, yeah, did you prepare any lyrical concept for this one?
Well, as mentioned, because I'm using it as an audio diary, the lyrical concept was basically just trying to put into words what I was feeling in 2019 and 2020 when I was going through some of the heaviest stuff that I've had so far in my life. I say that being aware that I'm still very lucky because I'm a privileged person in a privileged country with a good family, good friends, and everything. So don't get me wrong, but it was still some very, very challenging years for me. So trying to put that into words was basically what I was doing with Nova, which proved to be very hard. I think that was the hardest lyrics to write because it was so personal and it was a way to try to make it, I want to say, in one way worthy of what I was trying to say and just trying to figure out how I could express this because some of the emotions that went into the record were so intense and so urgent that it was really hard to know how to put this into words. So again, no specific concept. It was just a way to try to express what I was feeling because of everything that was going on in 2019 and 2020.
Mm, yeah, so even though it might not be like a concept written down for that, it defines your term of an audio diary actually pretty well, I guess. So that makes it like really, yeah, really interesting, I would say. And we come later to parts of this again. But first of all, like you have a song on the new album called "Fortapt," if I pronounce it correctly.
Absolutely.
um,
Good job.
and like you already had like a Russian named song on Silent Chamber. You had a Portuguese name of its song on Wistful. Like of course, like having a Norwegian song or like a song in Norwegian is not really quite a surprise for you being Norwegian, but like yeah, like what is like the idea behind these like song titles in different languages you use sometimes?
So it wasn't actually going to be a part of, or it wasn't a planned part of Sylvain, but I just kind of ended up every album having a word or a phrase in a different language that you can't actually translate into English by just using one word, or that doesn't have just one meaning, but it has many layers of meanings. And as you said, on the first record, it was a Russian word, the second record was a Portuguese word, on the previous record, it was a French phrase, l'appel du vide, and on this one we have mono no aware, which is a Japanese saying. So it has become a part of my universe to have these words that you can't really translate because I think language is very fascinating. I think it's really fascinating how in certain cases and in certain languages you have these expressions that you just really can't pinpoint in English, and they have so many layers and like vastness to the expression that's just interesting to use because it also very well expresses these emotions, like from being, for example, like Tosca sorry, that's probably not the right pronunciation. I'm so sorry to everyone that speaks Russian out there. But toka, toska, something like this, on the first record, that can mean anything from like just being like feeling this kind of like longing for something to be having like this huge hole inside and not knowing where it comes from. So it's really, really interesting. Language also provides such a different feel. Like if, for example, using English versus using Norwegian in music, it gives such a different actual audio quality. Like sonically, it's totally different, and also just the way it makes me feel when I'm performing it, also very, very different. So when I've chosen to do some songs in Norwegian, it's usually because the emotions of the song and the whole overall atmosphere and universe just for me seems like would work better in Norwegian. So I only have like two songs that have full Norwegian lyrics. I have one song that has a partially Norwegian, and it's always chosen because I felt like English wasn't the right choice for that specific case.
Yeah, I understand.
Mm.
Um, so when we talk about like the inspiration for music and lyrics, I think like it seems that a lot of the inspiration comes from like internal aspects, let's call it like that, as it is with like many artists and similar genres. Um, but I mean, like that, those are very personal, of course, but like, how about like the external things that influence you? For example, you was told like a lot about like nature being an influence, but like, yeah, what are these specific things that are like putting you to inspire you um, to to develop a certain emotion in a song?
Mm. I think I'm like a highly sensitive person, so I'm very influenced by the stuff that's around me. So it can be anything from, like you said, nature is a place that I find is offers something we don't get pretty much anywhere else. We can reconnect with what we truly are beyond our human forms, and we can just reset it. Nature gives us a space of serenity that we can't find anywhere else. At least that's what I find. So nature is obviously a huge inspirational source because I feel like I can actually connect with my spiritual kind of non-human side easier when I'm in the middle of nature, disconnected from kind of urban society. But it can be pretty much anything. It can be being in a place. Sometimes places have this special feeling, a special vibe, a special emotion that they give you. It can be people that you meet that inspire you. It can be places, for example, I love going to museums and taking in visual arts is something I really, really enjoy as well. It can be watching a movie. It can be watching some TV shows. It can be playing a game. It can be a lot of different things that the outside can inspire me personally, because I'm very, very sensitive to stuff like that. It can also be just experiencing something happening like in everyday life that you're experiencing there and then. In addition to, of course, just looking at what's happening to humanity as a whole and what's going on in society, also is very inspiring. Not necessarily in a good way, but it's hard not to be inspired by the outside world in many, many different ways, good and bad, I would say.
Mm. Yeah, and I think in this way also like nature is some kind of thing that really calms you down from all these external influences, you know, that really can give you that feeling to be grounded in a way, you know. And this is, I think, like a very also like a thing that we find in your music a lot, or that like a lot of fans of you um, find in your music to be kind of grounded and to be put away actually a bit from like yeah from all these external influences, you know, that you have like necessarily that you cannot really choose. Um, yes, as well as many other bands do, but I think that's also like a yeah like a characteristic element of music that goes maybe in a similar direction as Sylvaine's music.
For sure.
Um, yeah, you already talked like a bit about like these other external things because I think nobody would like argue with you if you say that Slovenia is not a political band. But the thing is, like things like you know political events and circumstances, the society you live in, which can be like very different from like depending on where you live, and also like the current times. Even though we don't like to talk about it anymore, but like COVID, of course, has like a huge influence, I guess. Because I think like that everybody is like somehow affected by that, like, political things, society, and so on. Um, and to say that it has no influence on the music at all seems to must be questioned at least, since like the
Absolutely.
internal is also like based on this, for example, your thoughts, your attitudes, and the whole being basically.
Of course, there's no doubt. And I think that's why I know a lot of people are like, oh, but COVID, the pandemic whole thing that must be great for all artists. And I was just thinking, how do you figure that? Because, okay, maybe you have the time to create, but the fact is you're not allowed to go outside and live life. And as you said, even for the internal space, some things will always be there no matter what happens to you in your life. But to have something to say, you have to experience. And for that happens outside of you. So that's very true. To say that you're not influenced at all by the outside world would be wrong. It's usually a mixture of outside impulses that go inside and you internalize it, and that starts some kind of dialogue, and from there, something is created. So that's absolutely true. We're all influenced by the outside world, and it's very true about the political thing too. People say, "Oh, I'm not into politics. It doesn't really, I don't really care about that stuff." I'm always very surprised because it's something that really affects every single one of us, something very important to the way that we have created our society. So it's true that the outside world definitely has a huge influence on everyone, no matter if it's something that your creations are born out of things that seemingly come from the inside.
Mm. And I mean, like, especially like about the political aspect in a way. You said before that like you're very privileged, and this is true because we are. I mean, like you're in Norway or in France. We are, for example, in Germany. We are very privileged
Absolutely,
combined to other people,
absolutely,
and also like very very practically thought. Um, it has like a huge influence on you being a musician because under other circumstances, you would not be able to, yeah, to express your feelings in that way. And I think,
absolutely.
I mean, like, of course, there are people who say like that music or like being an artist should not be seen like as a kind of therapy or something like this, but it grounds you, like the same thing as nature. It really grounds you, and we can be like, I think, like very very happy to be in that position that we can do that. And
Absolutely. I think we should all be very grateful if we have a way to channel all of this into something that's specific, into something that's meaningful. It's, yeah, we're privileged to be able to do that. That's why you'll never find me complaining about parts that are related to my job as a musician, because I feel no matter how hard it is and no matter how tired I get sometimes, it's really, really a privilege to be able to do something like this, because not everyone would even have the circumstances to be able to do it. But because we're living in Western countries like that are privileged, I feel very lucky that I can do it, basically.
yes, yes, definitely. And yeah, and if we talk maybe a bit more about COVID, like, do you think, or like, what do you think is like the biggest influence that this pandemic had so far on the artists, like in this case on you? I mean, like not only that you're not able to play like live shows and so on, but also like from your, yeah, like from your vision basically.
Well, like I said, I think the fact that when you're an artist, to be able to express, you have to experience. I think if you shelter yourself completely and you never actually interact with other people, you never interact with society, it becomes hard to say things, because I really believe that a part of the reason why we're here in this life, in this human body, is to learn and to experience, so we can move on as more enlightened creatures, hopefully. That's the hope anyways. So I think that the pandemic definitely slowed that down. For some people, it allowed them more time. For example, maybe people that have, let's say, a full-time job next to their artistic expression, it actually gave them the moments to be able to focus solely on their art, which is great. So for them, maybe it was a really good time. For other people, it might have been hard to find inspiration because you don't have the same interaction with the outside world. Also, just the fact of not knowing anything about security, or like having every kind of income source and stuff like that disappear. It was a hard time for everyone, of course. And for artists, it became really insecure. The future was like, we still are not back to normal within the music business, entertainment business in general. So it was a heavy burden to bear. So for some people, it was the moment to create, and for others, I don't think it was very inspiring. I think it was too heavy and too isolating. For me personally, the whole pandemic situation, I was suffering a personal loss in these years. It started like in 2019, going into 2020, and it just really happened to align right at the moment when the pandemic really started. So when I was going through my personal loss, the whole world was going through a collective loss. So for me, it really amplified the feelings that I was having when I was making my fourth album. It really amplified everything that went into to Nova, and that kind of feeling that I've had since forever of being lonely, basically, was also very much amplified because we were all isolated and kind of lost each other in the middle of everything. So it was a tough time. For me, I decided that I wanted to try to be more active online. I wanted to try to interact with people and try to spread positivity around with the ways that I could, even if I was having a really hard time and I was trying to fight off a lot of grief and trying to rebuild myself as a person. I decided that I wanted to try to do something positive as well, so that I could sit at the end of 2020 and say that this is what this year was about, this is what this year taught me, this is what it brought me. So for some people, I'm sure they had the same. They had this kind of like, really, let's take this moment to really do something meaningful. For other people, they might not have had the energy or the mental power to do that, which is also totally fine. I think it has been a very like soul searching period for a lot of people. It really made them face what is important in their life and what they want in their life and what they don't want, what they need, what they don't need, and also made them reflect a lot about who they are and who they want to be. Or at least that's what I'm hoping.
Something to hope for sure. Yeah, it definitely have been like some weird times that I have like yeah, like very similar influences, but also on the other hand, as you say, like some different influences on the people and on the artists, and especially like how they deal with it also when it comes to the music. But like everything comes to an end, so just like
Exactly.
in a good and in a bad way, I guess.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
To come to another maybe emotional problem to say, um, like how hard is it for you to stick to the emotional connection to a song? Because like until the end, it's often like such a long road to go. And at some point, especially when you have to listen to different mixes or you even have to mix it by yourself, you could get like tired of it. You could get like new ideas that should be like changed in a recording or in the writing moment. And you might see it in the end just as a product and not longer as like an emotional creative outcome of yourself. Like, and how far like do you deal with this problem?
Yeah, I think every single person that has gone through a mixing process of a record at some point has been like, "Oh God, stop! Why? Like, don't torture me with my own music." But I have to say, I've never gotten to the point where I see my songs as a product, where I lost the emotional connection with them because I've heard them so many times. I might have been like focused on specific details over the emotion that it gives me in certain moments, but I still very much feel connected to everything that I've released because that's really important to me when I'm releasing a record. I usually write too much music. I write quite a bit of songs, and I only take the songs that I feel really convey the story of the album, the message that I want to tell and communicate to my listeners. So I think going through that process, I already eliminate the songs that would potentially become those songs that you're just like, oh God, stop, make it stop. Because all of the songs that are left on the record are really heartfelt, honest expressions. And I think some of them will always touch you more than others. But for example, a song like Everything Must Come to an End, I've heard the song a million times, and still to this day, every time I hear it, it makes me cry. And that's like very interesting because it's not something that happens a whole lot with my own music. You don't usually feel like, oh, this is so beautiful with your own music. It's just right every time I listen to this specific song, and there's a few other songs like that, it just brings me right back to the moment when I created the song, and I just connect with everything that went into making the song, and it doesn't seem like it matters how many times I hear it. It just it always remains the same. So of course you get tired of hearing the songs during the mix, especially the mix, because you're listening to the songs so focused for so long. But I have never had that feeling of losing the emotional connections with my albums so far, anyways.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's like a very good sign of your own music when you have certain emotions when you write a song. For example, now that you described with all comes to an end, everything comes to an end, and like it's a good sign when you still have, after all this, you still have like this emotional connection to the song. I think that's a very good sign actually for an artist to say like, okay, I wrote a song that is not that bad actually, you know, but you still have
That's
so much.
hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, this actually doesn't suck. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty.
And I can think, or I can imagine that there's also like a thing that maybe young musicians have to learn in the beginning to deal with this, because I'm like, I don't know how it was with you, but I think it's like something that yeah, you actually have to learn as a musician to deal with this, because you can get like in a certain moments, let's say, where you are like yeah, a bit like not depressed, but like you know, a bit like feeling weird about your own music, you know, in
Of
this whole
course.
process. And I think that's like a very important thing to learn.
Of course, that happens to every single artist. If it's musicians, if it's painters, if it's writers, we'll all have moments when we're just like, "Why am I doing this? Why am I wasting people's time by sharing this?" But it's important to try. I remember so much having this exact discussion with Emma Ruth Rundle once when we were in Paris together. I asked her about that. How do you deal with that? Because I was going through the same thing at the time, and I was just like struggling so much with my self confidence. And it's true that it's something, like you said, you have to, with time, you have to deal with the fact that you just have to let go of those negative, this negative like monologue inside your mind, and try to move past it and just express. And then what will be in the end. And of course, when you listen back to stuff you've done before, you'll always find things that you would like to change. But I think it's really important that when you've created something, you recorded it, you've put it into shape, there's a moment when you have to let go. And that's hard. It's hard to let go because it's so final, but it's really important to let go at some point, because if you keep fixing it, I think it can start to go away from the original source of inspiration, and that starts to be, is it authentic anymore, or is it like too tampered with? So it's important to know, like you said, to learn when to let go, and also to just to try your best to block out those negative thought patterns. Just keep going, and then you can be critical. You have to be critical, because good isn't good enough. You always have to surpass yourself. But knowing the border between holding yourself back with negative internal talking, and being able to criticize yourself so you can grow.
Mm, yeah, definitely. Because I mean, like, imagine you would not put these emotion in it, and you would be 100% like, satisfied with your record. I mean, it would be maybe a bit difficult to create a new record after all, you know. So yeah, I think that's a very yeah, very true in the end. Um, like another topic, like you worked like with a lot of musicians so far. Like not only in Sylvaine, but like also uh, when you collaborated with other artists such as like Alsace, or now also like on new albums that come out this year. Like what does this give you, especially like to work with artists like not in Sylvain, but like with artists with like their visions, you know, to work on their songs actually, where you cannot say like, hey, but like, you know, I would cut off this whole riff, you know, and I would go like in a totally different direction. You cannot say this. Like, what does it give you and the band to do that?
Yeah, of course. I was like, I'm so close to Nej that I definitely did say stuff like that sometimes. I was like, "Hey, what the fuck is this?" Like, no, no. I mean, he's so good at what he does that he didn't need the feedback, but he was open to it. Like, I was lucky about that. But Yeah, of course. Doing guest vocals is actually something I really, really like doing because I think because of what you just said, that you're dealing with someone else's vision and someone else's expression, it pushes you outside of your comfort zone. They come to you because they want your expression, obviously, but at the same time, you put yourself in a situation that you probably wouldn't have been otherwise because it's not written by you. So it brings out things of yourself that you would not maybe expect, which is very very cool. It's super cool, and it's really an honor to be able to work on other people's stuff that they trust you enough to bring something positive. So for me, the most important thing when I do guest vocals is that I basically can bring something to the song. I have actually turned down several guest vocals. I actually tried sometimes to do a couple of things, and I wasn't satisfied with what it was. It wasn't adding anything to me, at least, to the song. So I declined to do it. So it's really important that the vision that is there obviously is intact, and then I just kind of add another layer that can kind of build up under that. So it's much more about what can I offer to the song than what it offers to me. Obviously, it's always very cool to work with these people, but the coolest part is being able to just, I don't want to say help an expression because they don't need help, but just being able to add just a little bit of extra layers there to add something that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Yeah, so these songs come out like as very interesting, like yeah, not really experiments, but like you combine two artists, which makes the whole thing naturally a bit bigger, actually, which is
Absolutely.
very interesting. And I can also think that it also like how to say it in English, but like to create like a new horizon for you, actually, like also from
For
an artist
sure.
perspective, because if you see how other people are working, maybe that's like completely different, like what you're doing or something like this.
Absolutely. It always brings like new impulses. And like I said, it sometimes pushes you towards things that you wouldn't have necessarily done yourself because it's being inspired by another type of expression. So it's super interesting all around. And it's also very cool. Sometimes you get, like, for example, I did this guest vocals with the Danish band Möl. And they had a very specific thing in mind. They told me, here's the lyrics, like try to write them. I mean, they were in Danish, so I just kind of made them Norwegian, which is very similar, but it sounds different. And then they had like, you sing here, you do that, and then I kind of got to do whatever I wanted. Whereas, for example, I did a collaboration with Ison, and with that song, Meridian, Daniel basically said, "Do whatever you want." He just gave me the song and he was like, "Here you go." And I was like, "Ooh, you just opened Pandora's box." I'm gonna put vocals everywhere. So I didn't put vocals absolutely everywhere, but I did have a bit more freedom to like to to build the song. I actually got to build the song a little bit, work with the dynamics by choosing where I wanted to put in the layers and stuff. So it's very interesting. It's like a case by case thing. Super cool. I also had a couple of collaborations coming out later this year with Carpenter Brut, this French synthwave artist. Super cool guy. He just released a song from the new record now, which was great. And that was very unusual to sing to this kind of like very dark and creepy synthwave song. It definitely brought out some things that I wasn't expecting, and it actually inspired me for Nova, which was really cool. Like it was again not expecting that, but there you go. That's the kind of thing that can happen with guest appearances.
Yeah, well, yeah, like this is very interesting, and yeah, definitely, like also like when you were like when you like Sylvain, you were like really looking forward to those um, collaborations because it shows sometimes also like a different side of the artist, which
Absolutely.
makes the thing like yeah, as a listener, like as a close listener, like very very interesting, I would say.
Hmm.
We already come to the last question. Which I want to base on a quote of you at the end of the promo material, which is music is an attempt to avoid the words we can't always express in life, which is a
Hmm.
very interesting quote, actually. So based on this quote, I would like to ask you maybe a very easy question, but maybe the most difficult question that there can be. What is music? Or at
Ooh,
least what is music for you?
what is music? Um, that is a very difficult question. In one way, it's simple. Music is communication. Music is emotion. Music is pure. I think. Maybe not always, but a lot of music can be pure because it comes from a place of honesty and authenticity. But I would say that first and foremost, music is communication. It's a shared experience. So even if, obviously, as a creator of music, it's usually happening in a more introverted space. If you're doing it alone, it's definitely super introvert. If you're doing it in a group, you're still exchanging between different individuals. But at the end of the day, music is meant to be shared. Music is meant to create a shared experience with other people. If it's from your heart to someone else's at their house and you're separated, you're still sharing something. Or if it's at a concert where you have a direct energy flow and you can actually see in people's faces that what you are doing and you're communicating to them is affecting them. Um, that's what music is for me. It's communication, communication beyond language, communication of emotion, like a pure line from one heart to someone else's heart. That sounds very cheesy, but I think you see what I mean. From my heart to yours. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, I think it's very true, because we said earlier that like we are living in, sometimes very similar environments, but sometimes also like our problems are very, or like our challenges, let's say, are very, very similar.
mm,
Um,
for sure.
and like when you have an artist with a certain emotion creating something, and many people, or like it's enough if one person that doesn't know you like really feels the same. I think this is like a very powerful and yeah, and a very beautiful thing for both listener and artist.
Absolutely. It's I don't think I'll ever get used to that, actually. People coming to me, like, either online or coming to me after the shows and stuff, and or just seeing people sharing the music online and seeing what they write about it, and reading the comments and see that people understand, or like hearing people telling me about this, my own songs and stuff. It's amazing. It really is something that's beyond words. It really is this connection that you can have to someone without ever having met them. They don't know you, you don't know them, but somehow you're sharing something together. It's just, as you said, it's really powerful and it's really beautiful, I think.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that it will be the same with Nova. Thank you very much for talking today. Thank you for answering the questions. Everybody, don't forget, in March, Nova, the new album of Sylvaine, will be released. There will also be a review about the album on our website. You will find all the details in this information box below here. And yeah, it will be in German, so maybe will be like interesting for those among you who speak German. But yeah, don't forget, save the date. And yeah, thank you very much again. And see you next time.
Thank you so much. See you.